Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Live Well with Barrie. As you know, it's a show about inspirational people and how they can inspire you. This week we have none other than His Excellency Guy Hewitt, the High Commissioner of Barbados in London. Nice to meet you, sir.
Great to be here.
What a
Great
pleasure.
to have you here with
and I know
us,
you're
Barrie.
very busy, so you had to make some time to fit us in, so we're very grateful.
Happy
Yes.
to. It's always good to make time for
How have you been?
Great. I'm coming to the end of 4 wonderful years in London, and I look back on them with great pride and satisfaction of feeling that I've been able to add value.
That
to
4 years
my
has
poem.
gone so quickly, I can't believe it.
It has gone immensely fast, but it meant that I
Because you
kept
came in
myself
after
busy.
Donville.
That's right. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
I met Donville and met him up in Cave Hill and back home.
Yeah.
But and I only connected with you later on in the last 2 years.
In the last 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how have you found London?
Well, interestingly, I tell people this. I am Barbados' first London-born High Commissioner. My parents met here, got married here. I was born here. So I always say to people, this is the land of my birth. And and it's important because I've been saying to the members of the Barbadian diaspora and the wider Caribbean diaspora, don't let anybody feel that because you're not from the Rock, because you're not born in the Caribbean, that you are any less a citizen or patriot. We had the good fortune in 2008 to have seen the first London-born Barbadian become Prime Minister of Barbados, David Thompson.
Correct.
Again, it was to me a great affirmation for the diaspora. Yeah. And one of the things that meant a lot to me was affirming the importance of the diaspora, what they have accomplished in this country. And people don't recognize in very small but significant ways, Barbados has impacted on a number of different spheres in this country. And we have a lot to be proud of in terms of what those who have been born here have accomplished, but also those who came from Barbados have equally accomplished by what we would say from our national motto, pride in industry.
And industry, yes.
Yeah.
Now, I want to get to the diaspora and later on.
Yeah.
But I want to start with the beginning of your journey.
Yeah.
As you said, you were born here.
Yeah.
So at which stage did you go back to Barbados?
I started primary school in Barbados. So I have very faint recollections of the BOAC flight. Going back to Barbados.
The junior jet club.
Yes, exactly. But starting that journey there, I went to school in Barbados, primary school, secondary school, university in Barbados, at UWI, in Jamaica and in London as well. But one of the things that I think always struck me was the way in which this country, in terms of its influences, impacted on Barbados. So, we are one of the few, if not the only country, to have been governed by 2 Labour parties. We have the Barbados Labour Party and the Democrat Labour Party.
That's
both
right,
Labour parties. And what that has meant is that the welfare and the well-being of the citizens has always been important to the governments.
Yeah.
The governments, as a consequence, has worked hard to provide free education, free healthcare, much like the UK, access to social housing, access to public transport, to make life better for people. And in that, I've always appreciated it has happened through, I would say, the government being very prudent, having its priorities right, working hard in the interest of the people. And that, from a young age, and I don't know what would have given rise to it, allowed me to appreciate the importance for those who have received much to give much. And I look at my life where it wasn't one of privilege or luxury, but through going to a government school, because the best schools in Barbados, I went to Harrison College.
Oh, wow.
But I was going to say no, but the best schools in Barbados, although we've got a grammar school system.
Yeah.
It's the best schools are government schools.
Yeah.
And so you go to schools where literally I was in class with the then Prime Minister's son. So you've got people whose parents might be prime ministers, who may be office workers, who may be security guards, who may be cleaners.
Yeah.
But we all come
are
to the school.
educated
And
together.
the school provides access based on ability. And so there's no backdoor entrance. So when you go there, you're among those who are seen or feel to be or deemed to be the best through the results in 11 plus, and you compete based on what you have here.
Right.
And so it's not what you have in your pocket. It's not based on the house you live in, based on the car your parents drive or what job they do. It's flat out what you can do. And that, I think, defines what Barbados has been for a long time, a meritocracy where you can feel that there is a space for you and the ability for you to become whatever you want
to be
based on your ability. And I tell people, in Barbados, if you've got the ability and the application, anybody can be a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is a wonderful context to operate in. And it was so significant. I have to say that my children, I was working in London in the 90s. My children were born here, but I deliberately took them back to Barbados because I wanted them to grow up in a society that says to you, you can be the best you want to be, regardless of race, class, or creed.
Yeah.
And that is very,
because
very
one
powerful.
thing people always say to me when they visited, people visiting on holiday, they say, but you'll see an old chattel house next to a big, expensive mansion. I say yes, because they quite comfortably living side by side.
Yeah. In Barbados, we have seen in one generation, and I always reference or have to reference back to the father of our nation, the Right Excellent Earl Walton Barrow, who had vision of trying to create a country, because he led Barbados into independence, where there would be opportunity for all.
Everybody.
And he brought in social policies, social protection to make sure that everybody got the means to get ahead, and inspired the country and its citizens to want to be the best that they can be. And I think that's something that, for me, it has been an important message to pass on to my children, to pass on to people in Barbados, to pass on to our diaspora here. Do not be limited by how people perceive you or what people tell you you're capable of, but follow your heart, follow your dreams.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I had to speak to you, because exactly what you've expressed there is what this is all about. And as you say, it's not about coming from money. It's about where you come from and doing the best you can to be the best you can be. And as we said earlier, what is the difference between the one that has still come from humble beginnings but taken a different road and the other one that's taken a road that's something else?
Part of it, I tell people, and I'm reflecting not in a role of High Commissioner, but that of parent. It's growing up and living in the 21st century is tougher. If I go back 30, 40 years ago, if you went to university, it would guarantee you a job. It guarantee you a career start. The cost of housing, I'm talking about in London and even in Barbados, much more affordable. Everyone who had a reasonable job, a job as a clerk, as they say in Barbados, a collar and tie job. Once you got paid on a monthly basis, you could afford a roof over your head, car to drive. That has changed. Young people now have to hustle. They get first degrees, they get masters.
That still doesn't guarantee them anything.
And this is why I say to my children, I say they're teenagers now. I say to them that they've got to have the strength of character and the strength of resolve to push through the obstacles, because they're going to come. Some of them, as I say, are structural by the fact that the economies and the societies don't guarantee success as easy as they did before.
Yeah.
Others can be about how people will perceive you based on how you look or how you sound or who they think you are.
Yeah.
But you can't
allow that to block you.
To block you.
You've still got to fight, climb over it, find a way to get over the hurdle.
And it comes in so many different ways. Life can be a challenge.
It is a challenge.
You said, at the end of my 4 years, I've got wonderful memories. About 4 weeks ago, on a Sunday, I got a call from Barbadians. A young couple just got married, were in Barcelona, about to start their honeymoon cruise from Barcelona to London, and they got robbed of their passports. They got robbed of their money. They were in absolute despair. And I said to the parents, got in contact with me, and they felt these children should abandon the cruise and come home. And I said, stop again. I said, give me their contact details. And I phoned them. I said, let me explain the first point here. Y'all are married. Stop listening to your parents. I said, the second point is, y'all have each other and y'all are safe. Give thanks for that. Third thing is, you're in a beautiful city. So if you're trapped in Barcelona, it could be a lot of risk. Enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
And I said to them, listen, stay safe, calm down, and I'm going to work on this. And within 24 hours, we had passports in their hands. They were able to join the cruise and continue their honeymoon. They couldn't pick up in Barcelona. They went to Italy and picked it up in Naples, but they continued. And I said to them, in life, obstacles will come. And you can either use it as the opportunity to grow and develop strength, or you can let it overwhelm you. And that is something that, for me, is important as a lesson for young people, to be able to see challenges, to see obstacles as opportunities, to learn to exceed even their own expectations or the expectations of others.
Yeah. But you see, as you say, it's all about perspective. Yeah. Now, you're in that situation. You keep a level head. Some people are tragic and they panic and hysterical. And then others take a deep breath. Now, how are we going to deal with this? And once they've got in contact with you, you can get it sorted.
Well, I'll tell you that as well. And one of the things that has been important for me to learn, and I learned it early on, there's a lot of wisdom in our seniors, our elders. We live in an era now, a social media connected world, where invariably we are getting information from our friends who bombard us through WhatsApp and Twitter and Snapchat, and it comes through. And it doesn't give us time to distill and understand what is the value of this information. I've always listened to the voices of my elders. And what I've learned to appreciate from them is that when you've got problems, you've got to go to people who have the experience to guide you. You listen to your friends who have the same experience that you have. They can't help you. And you go to someone who has been on the earth 20 or 30 or 40 years before you, who has possibly been through the situation, may have handled it badly that time, but this time around can tell you, look, I've been there. I know what you've been through. Look at it from this perspective. And that, I think, is one of the challenges growing up in the 21st century, that young people don't have either the time or the opportunity to listen, or the inclination possibly to listen to their parents and their grandparents, their elderly relatives, and even those in the community who have so much that they can teach them.
Well, there's that saying, isn't it? It takes a village to raise a child.
Correct.
Which is true. It's not just your parents, it's the extended family, the aunts, the uncles, the elders that are their friends. You know, so, but as well, it's also who you choose to take the information from, because somebody is an elder doesn't necessarily mean they're that well informed, because it's really about the experiences that they've had in their life.
But usually in the family, yes, the wise ones will say, don't listen to so-and-so.
Exactly. They don't make sense. They got the sense.
But that's the thing that we are now, if we look at where I look at my children, the young people are, the role models that they hold on to are really celebrities.
Yes.
And we struggle with making the distinction between what is a role model. A role model is someone who can instill and distill to you lessons, experiences, things for you to be able to improve yourself.
Yeah.
A celebrity is just somebody who happens to be on television.
And it's a PR
in
machine.
the PR, and exactly.
It's a
They
PR
don't necessarily have good values. They may not necessarily have the right attitude.
Well, as you say, it's with the intervention of that social media that has blurred the lines because so much comes through so quickly, you don't even determine what's going on, and you see whoever the celebrity is, and you think because they're famous, because they're in the public eye, they are somebody to follow. And then later on you find out, well, there's this and there's that and there's the other. It's like, well, really? No, they're no example.
And that's the challenge. For us, for me as a parent, my children are now teenagers, trying to protect them from those influences that come in. You see, before, when you grew up in pre smartphones, I would say even pre cable, when everybody sat and watched one television program in one TV in the house.
With the remote control,
exactly.
The parents push you and you get up and go and send it.
Exactly. we could control what our children saw, who they talked to, because in those days when the phone rang, the parent would answer it, or the other thing is when they ask, who are you speaking to? As a child, you had to volunteer the information because they'll tell you, this is my phone, so let me know who it is, or I put it out. Now children have access to smartphones.
Right there. This is my phone, and I want to know who's ringing my phone.
And you had to. And that notion meant that as parents, you were aware of
what
the world your child was exactly what world your child lived in, what was going on in their lives. But now with a smartphone, a child of whatever age, once they have access to a smartphone, has access to the world, and the world has access to them.
Yes,
and
that's the dangerous part.
And that's it. No, we can't change that. And no amount of willing or wishing or nostalgia will get us away from it. The challenge is, how then do we teach our children to navigate the world that is so accessible to them and they can access so easily?
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
So you started at Harrison's College.
Yeah.
And then went on from there to where?
So I went on after Harrison College, I went to the University of the West Indies in Barbados.
Okay. In Cave Hill.
I went to Cave Hill.
My house, that is.
Yeah. So there you go. So you know the area well. My background, I studied a lot of work in development. Okay. My interest was always, although I seem to have had inclination towards or competency towards accounting and things, I never wanted to be stuck in a job. In an office as a job for the rest of my life. I mean, I have great respect for those friends of mine who have done law, who have done accounting, who have done jobs where they can sit and they can be in one job, in one place, in one firm, and they work through and retire
there. Yeah.
I always had, I guess some people would say, attention. No, answer plans. Modern day, they would define it as attention deficit. I knew I always wanted to be on the move.
Yeah.
And so I looked for jobs that would take me around the world. I never had the money to pay to go around the world, so I thought, let me see if I can combine a job that does it.
Send me around
and
the world.
So in development, I have been able to work in Africa, in Asia, in the Pacific, in North America, in the Caribbean, and it's been wonderful. I've learned, I tell people that my greatest education, apart from what I've done at the University of the West Indies, both at Cave Hill in Barbados, at Mona in Jamaica, and then here when I went to the University of Kent, has been traveling, getting to know people in different contexts.
And
not
it puts it into context
and
because
exactly.
you hear about people,
Yeah.
but then actually seeing it in practice. And you realize,
and seeing different worlds.
Yeah.
And being able to appreciate sometimes what we take for granted, we are very privileged.
Yeah.
When I went to Jamaica, and it sounds naive, I left Barbados with the presumption that all children everywhere in the Caribbean went to school.
Yeah.
I got to Jamaica and realized because of their economic situation, the government was not able, they're now doing it, to provide free access to secondary school for all children.
Right.
And I came across that reality there and confronted it, and it really, I think, when you say what pushed me in these directions, those experiences of hardship and of need, of meeting children who wanted to find or needed to find a Saturday job or weekend job to earn some money to be able to get bus fare.
To get to school.
Or to get to school. You see, in Barbados, children don't pay to travel on the bus.
Yeah.
We've got a school meals program, so at primary school, we feed them at schools. Those things I took for granted. And I went to Jamaica and I was able to appreciate not only the strength and the wonders of its culture, its people, and the beauty of the country, and let me say that. But then I realized what the challenges are.
Yeah.
The challenges for people who don't have much greater than Barbados. So I was able to look at what we give in Barbados that some people are critical of and say the government can do more. And say, well, actually,
they're doing quite a lot.
They're doing a lot more than other countries in the Caribbean.
Both the governments being Labour with a slightly different perspective, but they're both Labour-based and with the interest of the people as a whole, as opposed to, the hierarchy.
Exactly. But you see, but when I say that to my children as well all the time, don't look at what you don't have, but focus on what you do have.
Well, that's a lesson of life, really, isn't it?
But unfortunately, too many parents don't try to reinforce that lesson. They're constantly trying to do as much as they feel they must, or sometimes the children demand for them, and they go into debt.
Right.
They put themselves at risk. They make sometimes the wrong decisions because they want to provide the material stuff. They want to be able to say to the children, you can go on vacation, you can have these things, rather than being able to say to them, this is all we can afford.
Yeah.
And I've said to my children, I've always been very frank with them. I said, I'm not going on vacation to run into debt. If we are going on vacation, we will save towards it. Based on what we save, we can decide where we can afford to go. Right. I've said to my children, I will not mortgage my house to send you all to school.
Well, people do that kind of nonsense, don't they?
But you see, they think that they
take
are...
out a loan to go on holiday.
But this is the thing. We think that we've got to keep up with some artificial standard. People do it. They take out loans to have weddings.
Yeah.
They are now in Barbados for our carnival crop over. There's a crop over loan. They will lend you money to buy a costume and go to parties, fetes. When people need to ask the question, is this necessary? Now, if my children hear this, they'll say, yes, this is my miserable father who has been cheap and hard on me.
We've all got one of those.
But I've said to them that they need to understand what responsibility is. Again, a story I said, kids probably hate me for telling you all the business. Last summer, my son came to me at the end of his first year at uni here. I said, Dad, I need a new computer. The one I got the year before doesn't have enough memory. When he was going into university, I said, spec the computer. Tell me what you want. I don't know anything about computers. I will buy it. He got one. He said, it doesn't have enough memory. I need a new computer. I said, let me explain, son. These are not shoes. You don't get new computers every year. So what you need is a job. And I said, that I will help you find. And I took him around the high street. We worked on a small CV. I said, go into every shop ask if they're looking for summer workers. And by the end of the day, he had a job. By the end of summer, he bought his own computer, and then he bought some clothes, some shoes, and he had a good time, and he understood the value of money and doing it himself.
See that nice smile? Forget that.
That's what I said. My kids, and I'm hoping in time that they will appreciate it. But I've said that to them. I say to my son, you've got to work. I tell them, I pay for you to study.
Yeah.
So between when you're at university, between September and May, you're on my bill. Between May and September, you've got to fend for yourself. There's no allowance in summer when you are 19 years old. Find a job. And these are the things we've got to tell them, because we've got to tell them this is the reality. When our children finish university, they've got to get out into the world of work. And if they don't know how to find a job, if they're not prepared, then they are going to continue to have this notion, my parents will provide for me. And I told them...
And that's the irony with all the educational system that we go through globally.
Yeah.
That's not something that's taught, yet it is a life necessity.
Yes, yeah. And this is, it's the, as you raised, Barrie, it's the soft skills.
Yeah.
And I tell people that I say to my son, the small things like saying thank you, the small things, the small social skills about understanding the vital importance to make sure you're at work on time.
Yeah.
The ability when somebody does something to you to say thank you to them. I say to him as a young man, you're going through a door and a female is approaching, you give way. I said, this is not a competition to see who is stronger or bigger. I said, understand as a gentleman. And people might say, this is passive. I said, no, but when you become a husband or a partner with somebody, you've got to know how to treat somebody else with consideration. And that only happens if we teach them how to look after siblings, how to respect people with difference. I grew up in Barbados, and we never had summer camp programs. We would go to the beach, all children, and the ones who were 4, 5, 6 knew that they had to listen absolutely to those who were 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah,
and
true.
we knew that our parents would hold us accountable for them. So that so everybody learned early on how to be their brothers and sisters keepers. And those skills that we learned in the community, how to be at home. I know, again, here, the child services are very specific about how old a child can be looking after another one. But the reality in the Caribbean, you learned that early on, and you were skilled at it. There are some things children shouldn't do, issues with fire and cooking and things. There's always a danger. But in terms of being able to say, I can walk a sibling to school, I can see them on a bus, I can go to the shop and buy something.
There on time to pick them up off the bus. And
exactly. Those are life skills that we need to continue to try to instill in younger generations.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. So now I want to get to the political career. When did that come?
I would say,
because you said you traveled around the Caribbean.
I mean, I have worked, as I said, I've worked across the world, and I wouldn't say that my interest is politics as much as it's developmental. I have always wanted or desired to be able to help people.
Right. And to make a positive difference, of course.
To make a difference. And that took me into working in a number of areas. I worked at the University of the West Indies doing research. I worked with NGOs doing activism for civil society. I worked in London before at the Commonwealth Secretariat, which was doing social development policies across the Commonwealth. So this is what took me to the Pacific and to Africa and to Asia. After that, I went back and worked with CARICOM. And from there, it brought me back here in this role as High Commissioner. And in all of those jobs, my desire was to see how my actions could contribute positively to other people's and the Caribbean, the Commonwealth, the wider world that we are in. I will say this, I've gotten immense satisfaction from my work. I have enjoyed it. I have said to people that each job, each appointment has been a wonderful and positive experience, has built on what has gone before.
Right.
And that has led me to here, coming back to London, coming back to the land of my birth, and finding the opportunity or looking for the opportunity to help others. And while we did a lot of it amongst the Barbadian diaspora, the community events, outreach, mobilization, then we had the opportunity of the Windrush scandal, which demanded leadership.
Well, I was going to say, we're going to get to that.
I was willing to step up and to step out.
Because this is what I was coming to next. With the recent Windrush scandal, it seemed that yourself and is it His Excellency Seth Ramakan, the Jamaican, were the most prolific. I was seeing you on the television, outside Number 10. I was seeing you on the tabloids. So was it predominantly the two of you that were moving this forward, or were others
I would say all of the
others.
The High Commissioner for St. Kitts and Nevis played a very prominent role. I mean, we were almost comrade in arms, the two of us, and worked on this strategy that came to fruition in April. The Jamaica High Commission and all of the other High Commissioners from CARICOM and ambassadors were also involved.
Right,
okay. But what I think resonated with me, this was not about the job. This was about me.
Right.
My parents came here in the 50s.
Yeah.
So for me, what happened to Bajans and West Indians through this hostile immigration policy could have happened to my parents.
Exactly.
It may have happened to people they knew. It could have been an aunt or an uncle or cousin, because that was my reality.
And the thing is, it affected all of us because we're all telling the same story. Most of our parents came here in the 50s
but
and
that's
the 40s.
The point. And so for me, having been born here, I said, look, as I say, there but for the grace of God goes I. So I felt that I had a duty, an obligation to get involved in this. Then when I realized the extent to which it was happening, that people had lost jobs, had been denied benefits, denied health care. Some had been detained, some had been deported. I did all that I can in terms of my networking with parliamentarians, with people in the Houses of Parliament here in Westminster, with civil society, with the charities that worked on immigration and race issues, with my fellow High Commissioners, with the media, to try to bring this together. Because I said to people, I didn't expect, and I will be frank, because I can't be anything else. When I got this job, I was stunned. People said to me, "Guy, how do you get a job?" I said, I don't even know, because I was afraid to ask, out of fear that they had the wrong person chosen. And if they checked the file, they realized, oh no, you're the wrong Hewitt. You can go back. I never had the courage to ask, because I could never comprehend being given the honor to represent Barbados as one of its ambassadors, its High Commissioners abroad. And for a while, I tried to figure out why was I here? Yeah. What was it all about? And when Windrush came, I said, okay, this is the...
So you're saying at the point of it came at the right time.
Yes. So had it come before, I don't think I would have had the experience in the network in London. But 4 years into the job, I had people at my disposal, or I say I could connect to people who were able to make a difference.
That you wouldn't have
and I would not have had earlier.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. I mean, including my network in the church, because one of the things that a lot of people are not aware of is how much the Church of England got involved in this. The bishops who wrote to the Prime Minister, and some people don't know that her father was a priest. Okay. And so there was this confluence of events that almost provided the unique opportunity for me to speak. Because one of the things that the government could not suggest was that I didn't know, or this is not really my battle or my fight, because this is my country. Yeah. And the Windrush generation is my generation. And so because
so I'm actually really connected.
So I am connected. So I was personally connected. I was professionally connected because it was happening to Barbadians. But also I felt morally compelled to do this. And too often, and I say to people too often, that we can lack the courage to do what we know is right. We can see a situation, someone is in need, there is a problem emerging, and we feel either that we doubt ourselves and we say, well, I'm not sure if what I'm thinking is right, or we believe that there's somebody else who could intervene and do it better than us, or that there may be a better time to do it. Right. But when it comes to doing the right thing, there's no time like the present. And I found myself with this feeling compelled towards it. And what really reaffirmed what I was supposed to do. We went to the Thanksgiving service on the 4th of April. They had a Thanksgiving service for the life of Martin Luther King Jr. And when I sat there and listened to the choir singing We Shall Overcome, and when I listened to the Bishop of Woolwich doing his sermon and his exhortation saying, are you working towards finding justice in your community? I said, okay, I've got the message. That's my cue. I said, this was my cue. And actually, I left there, came back here and did an interview with Channel 4 on Simon Israel. And I said, look, this is it. It's all or nothing. And I realized I was being asked, I was being called upon to stand up and be counted. And I did that, and it wasn't easy.
Actually being able to see the signs as well that are coming to you.
And that's the other interesting thing in life, that so many times there are opportunities present themselves, not necessarily in the most obvious or deliberate way, but if we listen to them, if we listen carefully enough, the message that whether we say it's God, the cosmos, life, our conscious is trying to send to us will get through. But too often, we either don't have the courage to listen or pay attention, or we fill our lives with so much clutter. We don't make the space or take the time to hear what we are being asked to do.
You don't even say it because you've got so much going on.
Sometimes too much going on. And I've learned now to appreciate the value of silence, of the quiet, of being able to get away from it all and just take a moment to ask, well, am I doing it the right way? Is this what is supposed to be happening? Is this the way to do it? And often our lives are so crowded, we don't get many opportunities, but when they do come, we have to hold on with them.
To be able to have that moment of silence is a luxury sometimes when you've got a busy
for a lot of people, I mean, sometimes you've got to schedule it, which I do. You wake up half an hour earlier to find the quiet time, because once a house comes alive, then there's no time. And once you get in the office, There's no time. There's just never enough time. But you've got to. It helps if you're able to find that time, that quiet time to be able to say, okay.
And that's exactly what Oprah says. She says, you know, sometimes you just have to stop in all the hysteria and just listen.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah. And it is there. And if we want to hear it, and if we give ourselves the space to hear it, we will get the message. We will get the message.
So at the end of your 4 years, gone too quickly, what's the move from here?
Back to the Caribbean. I am looking forward to taking a long pause. I have signaled my intent to I want to take about 3 months where I can go into my garden, go to the beach, go to church, just slow down, take it. The best beaches, yes. To take it slowly and to figure out what next.
So which part of the rock is yours?
Christchurch, the southern part. I'm a Christchurch man. Lived in Christchurch all of my life. I believe in, well, as you do, you get people with orientations, the West Coast and James people, the St. Philip people, the St. Lucie people, the Georgians, and as small as the island is, each one does have its own characteristics.
This is true.
Yeah, but I am looking forward to getting back to the Caribbean. I think after 4 years, I need to reground myself and immerse myself back into Caribbean culture to get a feel of where the society is and to see really what comes next. Or how I
change the politics in Barbados, right?
I'm going to change the politics. It's a good point. The people elected their first female prime minister.
Indeed.
A significant affirmation of the role of women. We have had women who have been judges, deputy prime ministers, senior civil servants, permanent secretaries, the principal of the university, but it's our first time having a female prime minister, and that is something to applaud, to show to the world and to women in our country that there is no glass ceiling. It has been shattered, it has been destroyed. Women can be all that they want to be. And that's very positive for me.
So what does Guy Hewitt do to look after himself apart from his half-an-hour piece before the house wakes up? Because with such a busy schedule, you must need to do something to just keep you on an equal.
Interestingly, I mean, even in London, I have found the opportunity to garden.
Okay.
Quite a few of the plants around the residence that I'm in now, I put in the ground myself.
Oh, right.
And when I say gardening, it's not finding gardeners. It's going to choose plants, put them in the soil, look after them, nurture them, and see them through. It's something I find very relaxing. I like open areas. And London, which people may not realize, has more green areas than most other cities in the world. As you say, what part do I come from? From Barbados, and I say Christchurch. I'm a South Londoner. I have lived between Battersea, Clapham Junction, Brixton, and now I am just in Roehampton, which is not far from Putney. I'm a South Londoner, and I find that might not have the underground service that the Northerners like, but it has the green spaces, and I have been able to find the green spaces in South London, and I've enjoyed them for the last 4 years.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Barrie,
thank you for taking the time out to
enjoyed being here with
enlighten us about the journey.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Really inspire us all.
And I say, as I go from this, the land of my birth, to all of the young members of the Barbados and Caribbean diaspora, to continue to believe in yourself, to see yourself as having the potential to be any and everything you can be. You never know, there'll be another Barbadian in London who can be our next High Commissioner. Thank you.
Yeah. Great message right there. Okay, great message. Can't get any better than that. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. And if there's anything that resonates with you in the show, please do leave a message. Until next time, see you next week.
Thanks.
Yes. Great.
Good. Now we